Hi and welcome to this week's tutorial from Mixmag TV. My name is Paul Nolan. In this two-part production tip, we're going to be looking at some bona fide legends of dance music. That's right, Daft Punk. Now with the new Daft Punk album, Random Access Memories, hitting the streets, we thought it would be great to look at some classic techniques that give Daft Punk their signature sound. In the first part of the tutorial, we'll be looking at how Daft Punk sample famous disco loops and be able to turn them into unique instruments that can be easily playable. In the second tutorial, we'll be looking at how Daft Punk achieved their signature filter-based sound using specific plugins from Camel Fat in particular. So, without further ado, let's jump into Ableton Live 9 and let's see how Daft Punk do their sampling. Okay, we're in the brand new Ableton Live 9 here, and I've been really cheeky and I have actually sampled the loop that was on the Saturday Night Live Daft Punk video. I'm sure a lot of you have already seen it. So I'm going to double click on the clip here, and as you'll see, the waveform is in and it's been analysed. Let's have a little listen to it by clicking on its play button here. Now you can already hear that it's out of time, and it's quite clear to see why. I'm going to turn the metronome off here in the top left hand corner. I'm going to go down, and you can see here where I have a little bit of a gap. So how I can solve this is by just hovering over the top here until I get my magnifying glass icon, drag down, and then I'm going to hold shift on the keyboard, hover over the first warp marker here, and then I am going to move the waveform in place like so. So now that means there is no gap at the beginning, which means there's not half a beat's worth of delay before the actual audio file starts. And the next step is to right click on that first warp marker again and then select warp from here. Now what that's going to do is allow Ableton to use its beat detection algorithm and basically put the audio into the correct rhythmical grid so we can use it in the most useful way. So I'm going to click on that now, and as you can see, it's placed a couple of warp markers here which allow you to pin this particular part of the track to the beginning of bar 2, bar 3 and anywhere else you like when you add them in. So if we put the metronome back on now and have a little listen now. So as you can see, it's not quite 8 bars, it's 8 bars and nearly a beat. So the second half of the actual sample here is obviously not going to loop perfectly, but the way Daft Punk actually sample is very, very clever. Whilst they take entire loops from other people's records, they also like to rearrange them in quite clever ways, and that's what we're going to look at now. So I'm going to just make an adjustment here and just move the snare in place because it was slightly behind. And I'm actually going to add in every beat, every quarter note, a warp marker. Now, the reason why I'm doing this is because there is a specific function in Ableton that will allow you to assign each of these chunks, if you will, to a key on the keyboard. So now that I've done that and put my markers in place, I'm going to right click on the clip here and you'll see this option here that says slice to new MIDI track. I'm going to click on that and show you what it does. A drop menu comes in, or a pop-up menu I should say, and what it says here is create one slice, i.e. one cut of the audio file per warp marker, meaning that every warp marker that I've put in, it will slice it to a different key on the keyboard. So I'm going to click OK here, let it think for a second, and what it's done is in the next channel, it's automatically created a MIDI channel. and it's also created something called a drum rack. Now the drum rack here will have each individual slice assigned to each one of these pads, and basically it is now automatically assigned to the keyboard. So what I'm going to do now is click on the record button here on the session for the track, and I'm going to play some random notes. Now, as you can hear, each individual key is on an individual note. It's also put a clip in place that if I double click on it, you will see different MIDI notes. Now, this is what's known as a trigger region. So if I stop the original audio here and play this MIDI file here, it actually plays the audio file perfectly in time in MIDI. So I'm going to take the metronome away now, and then what I'm going to do is double click on the top channel here, and basically if I just press the play buttons here, you can hear the different cuts. Now I can now start to, because it's on the MIDI keyboard, I can start to rearrange things like so. So you get the idea, where I can now start to add different slices together, resequence them, and get that kind of cut up Daft Punk sound that they're really, really famous for. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is go into this second clip slot here, and I'm going to record some different notes in different orders just to try and get that kind of Daft Punk cut up sound. Okay, so there's 16 bars worth there, and I'm just going to make sure that goes back down to the whole 16 bars, and then I'm going to highlight all of the notes here just by clicking and dragging. Right click on any note, go to quantize settings. I'm going to quantize all of these to the nearest beat, and then make sure adjust note on the start and the end are both on and yellow, and mount 100%, click OK. So let's have a listen to what that has done. Okay, so a little bit of a pause there. So we could actually just click on this note here, hold Alt, drag, and then make a little copy so it actually stutters a little bit. Okay, now that we've seen how Daft Punk do their sampling, we are now going to move on to part 2 of this tutorial, where we're going to take a look at how you can achieve the Daft Punk filter style effect.